Let's watch as we get ready for this morning's message.
Every time I look into my wife's eyes, I think, is this it?
Every day we fall in love more and more.
With who she used to be.
Someone told us once, never go to bed angry.
So I just sort of store my anger inside.
I may not have found the right person yet, but I'm having a pretty good time with all the wrong ones.
I guess you could say the sex is efficient.
I guess I have a certain type, and apparently it's the type that doesn't want to date me.
The sex is great. Twice a year.
I'm deeply in love with everything about her body. I thought I was supposed to have more sex when I got married. Now she falls asleep before I can put the moves on.
If it hadn't have been for my marriage, I might have gone through my whole life without realizing my flaws. Every single flaw.
As I prepared for this morning, I realized the challenge because there are obviously young people. There are those in this room who are single, divorced, many who have been married for 50 years or more. And so how do you speak to that kind of a diversity of age, background, status in life right now? And so if certain things don't specifically apply to you, bear with me. Realize the totality of the challenge in front of me and in front of us this morning, and yet there are some things that really need to be said. And one of the things that needs to be said is the fact that God has created us and created us in a unique way. It says in the book of Genesis chapter 1, it says, in Genesis chapter 1, we've been having problems with our computer this morning, so I just might have to say these from memory. And God said, okay, there it is over there. Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, over the livestock. In other words, God made us unique in his image to have authority over the things on this earth, over all of the creatures that move along the ground, okay? And so God created mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. Now notice, male and female created in his image. That means that males and females, females and males, both created equally in God's image. Male and female are equal in terms of being persons, in terms of being God's creation. Now I say that because there are those who have said that the Bible demeans women. It doesn't. The Bible was written in a culture in which women were property. They were property, and so a man had his cow, he had his donkey, he had his hut, and he had his woman. And because she was property, like the cow or the donkey, you could just get rid of somebody. That's why I'm doing this. You could kick him out if you felt like it. Now, Jesus really flipped things around, and he said, no, 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 the woman is not property, she is a person, created in the image of God. And I believe, therefore, that the first thing that I want to emphasize today is that women view themselves as being equal to men, as God's unique creation, that they are persons, and that men view women in that same way. She is not to be discarded if we become bored. She is not to be abused. She is not to be demeaned in any way. Now, it goes the other way around as well, but certainly even in our culture, there is sometimes the tendency for the man to think that he is superior. It is not the way that the Scripture teaches it. And so women and men created in the image of God, that is who we are. Now, let that sink in. I just want to go back for a moment to last week. I know we had bad weather last week, and a lot of people couldn't be here because of the weather. Boy, much better. Wow, look at this. We're full today, pretty close. And so some of you weren't here, and I emphasized two things as we concluded the series on the church. Number one, the importance of attendance, of being here. Because we put a lot of emphasis in this congregation, and we should, on getting involved and doing things, on volunteering. In fact, that's what Fiasco was all about this morning, out in Main Street, different places to sign up and become involved in choir or the food ministry or this or that, SWAM, for example. And so please visit back there. All of that is very important. But I emphasized last Sunday morning the importance of just plain being here. That when we aren't, we feel like there's something wrong. Why aren't they here? I get that question. Some people who attend very spasmodically, people will say to me, are they okay? Are they still with our church? And they are, because Karen Kahn calls them up or drops them a call. Oh yeah, I've been busy. Yeah, but not busy attending. Attending is very important. So that was one of the things. And then the other thing that I said was that our leadership is a shepherd leadership here at church. Our staff and our volunteers, we try to teach our leaders that they are servant leaders. They are servant leaders. So I got to thinking about that, and I hung up a sign on the mirror in the staff bathroom. You know how when you go to a restaurant, there's quite often, if not always, a sign on the bathroom mirror. It says employees must wash their hands before returning to work. Well, I hung up this one. It says employees must wash one another's feet before returning to work. I like it. We are created in God's image. That is very important. Self-identity. Who am I? That we are equal and we deserve respect from one another. Now, we will have unique roles in life that may put one person, in a sense, above another, like teachers above the students, parents above the children, authority figures. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being people. And it means then that I have to take a look at who I am in the situation in life where I find myself and respect myself. Let's talk about singleness, for example, single people. It may be that you compare yourself to others and say, I wish I was better looking, or I wish I was more available, or I wish I was married like those people over there, and you are frustrated and you are upset and you have discontent in your life, and that should not be. Now, I'm not, and I know you say, well, it's easy for you to say you've been married 55 years and you got another 55 to go. I hope. But I need to say it because there is something very important about singleness. You are a person created in the image of God. And if this is the status means the position, the place. If this is the status in life where God has you right now, then that has to be accepted and that has to be affirmed. And you have to respect yourself in that. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to stay that way forever. Who knows? A lot of people are single into their 30s and 40s and then meet somebody, and within weeks, months, they're married. And those that have lost loved ones, lost a husband or a wife. We've got a couple in this church, they are about 90 years of age, widows, and they just got engaged. Hey, it's never too late, right? Connie and Jim just got engaged, getting married later in July. Now, the future belongs to God, and you got to pray, Lord, if I do find myself as a single person in a status, in a state, in a situation that I don't want to be. I want to be with somebody. I want to be in a married situation. That has to be a prayer, and then leave it up to the Lord. Now, you got to do some things too, like join groups or be in places where you're meeting people. But I believe that there has to be an acceptance of your role, of your status in life. You have opportunity to do things that a lot of married people don't. It's one of the reasons why the Roman Catholic Church wants its priests and its nuns to stay single. They can act, it's one of the reasons. They can actually do more. See, married people, they got kids, they got to be at home, they got to be with a husband, be with a wife. You have opportunity to do more. You say, yeah, but I don't want to. I want to be married. Okay, but make that your prayer, but respect who you are. See, comparing yourself to others and always being unhappy is not a Christian way to live. There has to be this respect for who I am at this time. Now, married people, too, should not be comparing themselves to others. Oh, I wish I had a husband like that one. I wish I had a wife like that one. I wish I had a marriage like that one over there. No, no, no. I have to respect the marriage that I do have. One quote that I came across this week says, the important thing is being the right person, not so much finding the right person. When I was taking sociology, I had an amazing professor. Guy was brilliant. The course was marriage and family, and he said, given the divorce rate today, you would probably be as successful in your marriage if you stood on a street corner and selected the first person that came by was of the other sex, about your age, and that you felt looked somewhat desirable, and you got married to that person. He said you probably would have about as much success. Now, his point was that there's a high divorce rate, so dating and all of that doesn't guarantee happiness. But his other point was that we grow into a relationship. See, we have to learn what the other person is all about and begin to respect that and honor that and adjust to it. See, I don't care how long you date the person, you're going to find out things about that person once you get married that you perhaps didn't know before, or maybe you knew it, but you didn't want to confront it. See, marriage is the coming together of two people to be one. That's what it says in Genesis chapter 2. Genesis chapter 2 lays the groundwork for marriage. It says, the man said, this now is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. And this is why a man leaves his father and mother, is united with his wife, and they become one flesh. Now that's a sexual term. That sexual, you become one flesh. But it also is a spiritual and emotional and relational term. You become one flesh. And in that unity, there has to be a secret word. And the secret word is we. We. And marriage then is living out the we. There's going to be things you don't like about that person. Elida is still trying to figure out what she doesn't like, but she'll figure it out yet. There will be things you don't like, but that's okay. I guarantee you, those of you who are frustrated and you think maybe it's time to move on and find a different mate, you know the old saying, the grass is not always greener. Folks, I have talked to people who have divorced and remarried. Not all of them are blissfully happy. Some of them look back and say, I wish, well, you get the idea. What we have to do is we have to look at that person and say, what can I learn about this person, and how can I be the right person for this wife, for this husband? I've got to look at what their personality type is. We've got a marriage seminar coming up with Reverend Bill Curnow and his wife Dina. By the way, I know Bill and Dina Curnow very well, and if you want to have a good time, folks, take the marriage seminar. You're going to have a good time. They're not only good at it and very experienced, but they're delightful people to be with. And by the way, they are part of our Triple C church over there with Pastor Kirsch. But one of the things that they emphasize is learning each other's personality types, like sanguine and phlegmatic and melancholy and that kind of thing. See, not everybody likes to be up on the stage. When I ask certain staff people, would you like to give a report? Come up and give it. No, please. I'll write it, you give it. I don't, Not everybody likes to be up on the stage. But then again, some people like to be up on the stage. Not everybody wants to go to Bangladesh. for 2 weeks. See, different people have different personality types, and they have different roles, they have different strengths, they have different weaknesses, they have different gifts. This coming Saturday is Taste of New Community, and her Raisin Bran Muffins will be there. And I strongly suggest that you come early and get some. I will be dishing out some form of exotic food, either hot dogs or ice cream. But it's going to be a great evening. Please, please, for our young people, but also to taste a lot of really good food, come on out. But the thing is, we have different gifts. We have different talents. I don't crochet. She crochets beautifully. She doesn't give speeches. I do. Now, we have to learn to respect that in each other. If I said, oh, I'm sorry I married her because she doesn't give speeches, or if she said, I'm sorry I married him, he doesn't crochet, that would be wrong. We have to look for the strengths and learn to adjust to the personality types, to the roles, the strengths, the weaknesses, the gifts. You got to work on that. It is work. A relationship is work. And you also have to really adjust to the weaknesses and be willing to forgive. You've heard me say before, sometimes I have my kitchen to the living room experience. I get mad in the kitchen, walk to the dining room, then to the living room. By that time, I say, is it worth it? Isn't she God's gift to me? Have I really tried to understand what the real issue is? And then I'm back to the dining room and back into the kitchen for healing. Healing, forgiveness, learning, working, very important. See, the goal is that I have to love in a relationship. And if you're single, as you relate, as you find fulfillment with family, friends, the church, your work, relationships, we have to care about people in the way that Jesus cares about us. That's what it says in the book of Ephesians. In Ephesians chapter 5, Jesus says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church. How did he love the church? He died. He died. See, sometimes we have to die, don't we, guys? We've got to die a little bit. Got to die a little bit. Now, it goes the other way around, too, but we got to die a little bit. To make the church holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word. Jesus talked about that with Nicodemus that we heard from Diane this morning. To present her, the church, to himself as a radiant church. See, the goal of a man is to work on that relationship to the point where that wife is just the most amazing person that she could be. And again, it goes the other way around too, but without stain or wrinkle or blemish, but holy and blameless. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. And we have to be careful not to let the little things destroy the relationship. Now, I know big things can. For example, if you're living in abuse right now, you shouldn't. If you're being abused, if you're being pushed around, shoved around, hit, there's verbal abuse, you're cussed at, condemned, don't live in that relationship. Get out of there. It's destroying you. And get help. We got a lot of help here at church. A lot of help. And if you're an enabler, that is, you keep forgiving, you keep forgiving, you keep forgiving, but you keep getting hurt, keep getting hurt, keep getting hurt, you're wrong. Like we learned with addiction recovery, the way to really help an addict is to say, that's it, I've had it, no more, you change, or you're going to live without me. You say, yeah, but I can't do that because I'm supposed to love, and then maybe next time, and no. You have to learn to be strong. So the point is, there are big things that perhaps should change in your relationship. But for many of us, it's what Song of Solomon calls the little foxes. In Song of Solomon or Song of Songs, chapter 2, verse 15, it says, watch for the foxes. Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, our vineyards that are in bloom. See, the little foxes would run through the vineyard and eat the grapes or eat the blooms before they became grapes. And then the vineyard was ruined. See, it's sometimes, I wrote down a lot of the little things. See if any of you can relate. Holding grudges, reminding people of things of the past. You can't forgive. You can't get over it. Well, folks, you're destroying the relationship. Nagging. I like the one up there. So I learn my faults. Every day I learn my fault. By the way, that is not my marriage. I learned them long ago, and I have changed. Boy, am I going to hear about that one. Put downs. I meet regularly with a couple, and no matter what he says, she has a retort. She has a reaction, and it's always negative. Always negative, no matter what it is. The silent treatment. No time, no significant time together. You got to plan time together. I wrote a magazine article in the Christian Magazine some years ago about how you should make appointments with each other. Somebody wrote a letter to the editor and said, don't ever have that person write anything in this magazine again. That's terrible. You don't make appointments with people you love. But you do. You say, every morning or every Thursday or every whatever, we're going to have time together. You refuse to let that person have their own friends or to have their own alone time. You keep score. You hurt me these many times, I'm going to hurt you. You don't listen. Instead, our words, our actions should build one another up. Look what Paul says in Ephesians chapter 4. In Ephesians chapter 4, the Apostle Paul says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others, wife, husband, friends, family up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. See, that marriage is a covenant. It is not a contract. When you sign a contract, there's the suspicion that somebody might break the promise. They might lie. When you have a covenant, you assume that the other person is going to affirm what has been promised. Marriage is a covenant, but it's also the arena in which all sexual activity with another person is to take place. If people are living together without being formally married, you got to realize that as you live together and you've had sexual relations, in terms of the Bible, in a sense, you are married. See me afterwards, we'll set up a date to have the ceremony. I'm serious. See, you're already married. Why don't you just take the next step? See, within that covenant is sexual relation. Now, it's oftentimes more so at the beginning part of the marriage, the younger years. As people get older, perhaps there isn't that same kind of sexual intensity, or maybe none at all, because perhaps there's a movement from sexual activity to just solid friendship, and that's okay. Maybe, maybe not. Depends, again, on, don't compare yourselves to others. You live in your relationship as you have found it best. But where there is sexual activity, it is to take place within that, and there must not be sexual activity which is going to destroy. For example, adultery or unfaithfulness. And if there has been, stop it. If any of you are horsing around, stop it. You got to have the guts, you got to have the courage to say that isn't the way that God wants me to live. I'm going to change. I'm going to say no to that person. I'm going to step away from that lifestyle. And then there has to be forgiveness and healing. And you know what? It's like the time I broke a bat and my friend fixed it. The bat was stronger after it was fixed than before. Many marriages become stronger after they're fixed and there's been forgiveness. Paul says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, it is God's will that you should be, that is pure, that you should avoid sexual immorality. That each of you should learn to control. Now notice, it's a decision. It's a decision. You learn to control your own body in a way that is holy and honorable, not in passionate lust like the pagans who do not know God. And that in this matter, no one should wrong or take advantage of a brother or a sister. The Lord will punish all those who commit such sins as we are, but they're forgiven, by the way. If you come to the Lord, they're forgiven. But if you keep horsing around, you're going to get it. God's going to get you. For God did not call us to be impure, but to live a holy life. Therefore, anyone who rejects this instruction does not reject a human being, but God, the very God who gives you his Holy Spirit. Yeah. But that also means that there is a purity within your personal behavior. Pornography, for example, should not be part of your life. And here again, you can learn to control. If any of you have become addicted or at least deeply drawn to it, you got to change. That's not good. It's destructive. It's destructive to you. It's destructive to the marriage, to the relationship. And you set boundaries. You see, it's not only that marriage is the boundary, but build other boundaries around you as well. I talked to somebody this past week who was bemoaning the fact, in a very serious and beautiful way, bemoaning the fact that pornography is so easily accessed. And I had to admit, I'm not trying to sound prudish here, but I said, I don't know how to do that. In fact, I think my son-in-law, who is our computer expert, has put a block on our computers. So I don't know. And this person said to me, oh, you wouldn't believe it. Now, if it's that easy, there's a real possibility that a lot of us, a lot of you, have linked into that. And it shouldn't be. And do things. Do things, maybe starting today. Now, it's not wrong. Sex is not wrong. The Bible never teaches that sex is wrong. You have thoughts, you have fantasies, you have ideas, you have attractions. That's okay. That's I used to say to the high school people, if you have fantasies about the girl, about the guy sitting across the room, welcome to the human race. It's the way God made you. You ought to be happy about that. Don't, oh, Lord, forgive me, I had a sexual thought. No. We're made that way. It's what you do with it, what you do with it. And if you begin linking into an addiction, a sexual addiction, either with another person or with the computer, that's wrong. And so, for example, our daughter counsels. She's a licensed counselor. She counsels in my office. And she knows my password. See, are you willing to do that? Willing to give your wife or husband, somebody who has access to your computer, your password, so that they can see what you've been looking at? Time to change, if a change is needed. So let's take a look at what we've seen. 2 weeks to do all of this. But what we've seen so far is, number one, we are unique. We are image bearers of God. Respect yourself, respect each other in your status. Single, married, divorced, widowed, respect who you are, and pray to the Lord to accept that, and if you want change, to ask the Lord to open that door. Then, we talked about marriage being a covenant. And in that relationship, in that covenant, we learn about the other person, and we learn to appreciate the other person, learn to live with, work at, being with that person, growing together in that covenant, and not letting either something huge like abuse or pornography or something little like the little foxes ruin it, and that we celebrate the positive. We celebrate the positive. We affirm the other person. We speak, as Paul says in Ephesians, things that build one another up. Thanks for listening. Would you stand? May God be with you and bless you individually, in your singleness, in your marriedness, in your joy, in your sorrow. May his face shine upon you and all of your relationships and give you peace. Amen. Good morning.